you need to find your new marks and, anchor your identity somewhere in this new place, and having a community helps with that. So I would advise anyone to, even if you maybe have some doubts about what community is or you don't really believe it, just be curious, just try. And I think there is at least one or two positive takeaway that you will get.
Hi, my name is Orlando and you're listening to Cooking Back to Our Roots with my mom, Vivian Aqua, the DEI consultant at Amplify DEI. My mom will be talking to different guest speakers from the African diaspora in the Netherlands. The podcast is not just about food, but also about connecting the conversation with our roots and cultivating a deeper appreciation for our shared heritage.
Welcome to Cooking Back to Our Roots podcast, Sandra. And I'm curious about you, who you are, what you do. Can you share this with the audience, please?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. So I am Sandra Roberts. I am French. I was born near Paris, and my parents were born in the French Caribbean islands of Guadalupe and Martinique. And I'm based in Amsterdam since 2015. Yeah. Do you want to know also about my professional life?
Of course, because you do amazing things. So I would rather let people hear it from you than me. Then I'll see how I can build you up from there on.
Sure. So I am a freelance event producer. I've been freelancing in events for 8 years, and I'm currently focusing on production, design of events related to community building and culture, and also a little bit of sustainability.
Mm-hmm. What events have you organized, right? Because people want to know. And Sandra is not just an event organizer. I mean, the events that I've been on when it's related to OMEC, because she's also one of the event organizers from OMEC, it's always lit. So let's share. What kind of events do you organize?
Sure. So I've definitely been very busy with the lovely people at OMEC in the last months. So working closely with Schemo on developing, this beautiful community that is the OMEC community. And the last event that we've done, the major last one was the OMEC Summit that was happening at the end of October. That's a yearly rendezvous where we invite our community, but also people who are just curious and who can relate to our mission to come together and basically share knowledge, share with each other, and try to understand more about each other. And when we say each other, OMEC is focused on biculturals of African descent. So whatever we do, we really place these people at the center and then have conversations. And then anyone who is interested in hearing more about the bicultural aspect and people of African descent is very welcome.
You mentioned a little something about your roots, so I'm not going to ask you that question. However, I am going to ask you to share more about your country, right? If people want to know what they can do there, what's the vibe, why they should visit your country instead of looking at Lonely Planet, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so I guess a question for you, when you say my country, do you refer to France, the Caribbean? Well, it's okay.
I would say you mentioned where your roots are from. So if your roots are from two places, you can definitely share the two places.
Yeah. No, then I think it's good for the audience clarification in case you don't know the subtleties of, French Caribbean islands versus France. Mm-hmm. So we are the French islands are entirely part of France on paper. They are departments of the French country. But of course, there is a whole ocean between the French islands and the mainland. And that influences the way people live, the status of the people in the ladder of French citizenship, if that makes sense. All of that to say that life in the French Caribbean is very different from life in French mainland. And I grew up in France mainland, but my parents are from the Caribbean. So of course, at home, it was mostly, or partially Caribbean way of living, but in a white French context, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your question that I forgot.
Well, you have said you've demystified the relationship between the Caribbean and also between France, but I'm also curious about your roots, right? Your roots is partially France, but I'm more curious about the Caribbean part. So can you share more about that country, and can you share more about some different things that you wouldn't find in Lonely Planet as a travel guide?
Oof. Yeah, I would have to read Lonely Planet to understand what they. But what I can say is, well, these islands are beautiful. So Guadalupe and Martinique, they are very close to each other. And also, disclaimer: my grandparents are actually from Dominica, which is the islands in between Guadeloupe and Martinique, and it used to be a British island. So I also have this heritage, but I'm not so much in contact with that part. But Guadeloupe and Martinique are, beautiful islands. The culture is very high. I mean, I'm always so impressed about how, when I say where my parents are from, people are going to be like referring to a cultural aspect of these islands. They're so small, like 500,000 inhabitants each. It's nothing. But the music, the food, even in fashion, like there is a lot of cultural production from these small islands. And I think it's remarkable. Yeah, what else you can't find about these islands? I think it's just also you have to experience it. It's just a way people are. And I think it's not only in these islands, it's in the Caribbean in general. People are just, everything seems more simple, it's the pace of life, the way you appreciate life is totally different. And I think once you experience it, it reveals something within you that maybe you are not, you didn't know you needed in your life. But once you're there, you're like, that's this one thing that I'm missing over in Europe. Is like just the feeling that you can appreciate life just for what it is, the simple.
No, I would describe it as much as hospitality, right? What I hear from a lot of the people that I've interviewed so far for the show, that hospitality is seen differently here in the Netherlands and Europe differently, as when you compare it to the Caribbean, where you are warmly embraced, whether it's the weather or whether it's the people, whether it's the food. Everything is embracing you as a human being without even knowing who you are, what you stand for.
Yes, I agree. Exactly this.
Yeah. So what's your favorite meal that you want to share with the people?
Yes, that's a difficult one, but I will attempt. Also, I'm a sweet tooth. What's the expression? Yes. So cakes, I would say, is at the top of my list. But okay, on the other side of the food channel, I would say the dombre is one of them. So dombre, if you don't know what it is, it's a dish made of flour, like bowls made of flour and water, and then there is a sauce. It's mixed in a sauce, and then usually there is meat or fish involved. So yes, that brings a lot of memories. I always love when my mom does that.
It's like fufu, is that correct?
Is it like fufu?
It seems, because when I'm looking at the images, it has, fufu is made of plantain and cassava, but the way that I'm looking at the images, it seems like dough balls within soup.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I wouldn't call it necessarily, soup, but it's
stew.
Big soup, stew more. And then it's, I think fufu is very soft, right? Like you can break it easily. And these bowls, they're more like you just eat it as it's closer to gnocchi, let's say.
Yeah, and gnocchi also resembles fufu.
Yeah, then probably, yeah.
It's just a different way of making fufu, but eating it with stew, eating it with soup. Yeah. It seems like, the people from Martinique and Grenade also didn't leave their culture behind, but they adapted it and they changed it to something that resembles maybe fufu, or maybe a different kind of fufu that you are having there as well.
Yeah. Yes.
What else? What else would you like to share?
Yeah.
Need to taste from your country.
Yeah. One of my other favorites, which is very simple, but it's just delicious to me. It's rice and beans.
Yay, again, rice and beans. So that celebration was all about rice and beans.
Yeah. It's so good. You saw avocado on the side. It's like sweet. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, definitely that. And then another one, it's more like a snack, but I think has that direct connection with West Africa, at least, is what we call akra. Well, actually, it's in the name almost, akra. So those are beignets, right?
Mm-hmm. Tops.
Probably, yeah. So we make it with cut fish often and a lot of spices. Mm-hmm. And it's as a snack.
So you mentioned akra. That's what's akra?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to look up the naming of it, but I will definitely share. I hope that I can find a YouTube video so that I can share it in the show notes as well. And what did you learn from the preview that you watched from Cooking Back to Our Roots? What is an element that you want to highlight in this conversation as well?
I think I can always relate whenever people talk about this idea of connecting, the past, the Sankofa concept, the past, the present, and the future, how you incorporate your learning from the past to the future, to your present and future. I think that's something that I came to understand the importance of a few years back, when sort of doing a little bit of work on yourself and trying to understand who you are. And I didn't realize that how powerful it was because as people of Caribbean descent or Caribbean people, our knowledge about the past is limited, or not for everyone, but a lot of people don't necessarily know where their roots, African roots, for instance, are, right? So, and my parents were not necessarily also, teaching us much about this. Probably they didn't know. So I grew up not, this was not important when growing up. But then I came to realize that without that knowledge, or without at least acknowledging the fact that you have this history and it's super layered and it defines you a little bit. Without understanding that, then you can't really move forward as your full self, I think. And also through that process, also the idea of, I don't have huge spirituality, but I do believe in the idea that your ancestors are around you, it's somehow they're there and they're looking at what you're doing. And this idea, just that, to think of my ancestors that went through obviously terrible things, then probably looking at me and be like, yeah, she's fine. She's doing great, and this encourages me to, in a way, do it for them, and be like, okay, I want to make them proud, actually. Yeah, that's something I heard in the episode with Edson and Sasha, I think, if you're referring to this idea a little bit, and I was like, I like this, and that's very true.
True. And also good that you're bringing this element of the show back. And you have been in the Netherlands for quite a while, since 2015, but I'm also curious about your upbringing in France, since you are from France. How do you look back on your past? And this can be professional, personal. What is it that you want people to get out of what you have experienced in the past?
Yeah, wow. It's a broad question, where to go. My upbringing in France. Well, maybe I can talk about the reason why I live outside of France. Because I think France has a big identity crisis. Well, it's not a crisis, it's always been there. But as a young Black woman who grew up in the suburb of Paris, there are like so many stigmas that I was carrying. And I didn't realize that until I left France, and I came to the Netherlands, and then I was not a Black woman from the suburb. I was just a French person. And so, yeah, I think what I want to say here is that France is a beautiful country, but depending on your background, your identity, your Frenchness, your Frenchness will be totally different. And it's very limiting. And I think a lot of people don't see that. When I talk about France to non-French people, they're like, oh, I had no clue it was like that. And yeah, that's the thing. And when you understand that and you look at what France does in the world, then it makes sense. You make connections. You're like, okay, I see France is not like that. Only that beautiful, grandiose country. Glamorous. It's there's a lot of layers. Dark ones, but yeah.
I can definitely relate to that. So I've been to France for a couple of times, where I've been to, I think, the Seine, Lyon. I've been to Lyon, where I am being acknowledged and seen as a human being, but within Paris, which I thought that was an international landscape where you would expect people to be more open to all the different nationalities. Not only did I encounter challenges and dealing with exclusion, my child, Orlando, who was 10, was being excluded. And I'll simply share one thing, is that the French has a ruling on swimwear. Here in the Netherlands, we don't wear Speedos. We wear boxer shorts, to at least the men wear, right? The men wear that. And in France, they are wearing the suffocating Speedos, which my partner wasn't aware of. We didn't know about the custom. And that's also something that we all need to do better, is when we are visiting a country, that we learn about the customs and cultures so that we don't face exclusion based on the custom and the cultures, right? So that's upon us. But on the other hand, a child is with us, and the treatment that my child got was a treatment of exclusion for grown-ups. So the encounter that Orlando doesn't have all that much positive memories about Paris. Maybe I can make it up with him by going to Euro Disney, but then again, I'm not a fan of Paris. I've seen Paris in good, but I've also seen Paris in a dark light, whereas different cities within French or in France, I've never encountered the dehumanization as I did in Paris.
Yeah. No, that's France right here.
I got that introduction, and now French is not on my list. The same as for Italy. I'm skipping Italy as well, but that's a whole nother conversation. And given to what you know now, right? You have organized so many events where you have seen opportunities, seen people, seen organizations that are willing to go the extra mile. What would you like people to take with them into the present when you base it on the work that you're doing now? What's the valuable lesson?
The valuable lesson about the work that I do?
The valuable lesson that the work that you do, but also the encounters that you have at the moment right now. What is it that you want to share with people that can inspire them, can empower them?
Yeah, I think I will go back to what Ovett does, because that's also how we met each other, right? So I think Ovett, for me, since I've been working with Ovett, I realized the importance of community. I wasn't aware that being part of a community can be so, again, powerful and empowering and just comforting, actually. Maybe not necessary to use like super big words, but just the comfort of being part of a community that you can not fully relate to, but relate to, because being part of a community doesn't mean that each and every person within that community have the same ideas, look like you, and so forth. No, it's that there is a common denominator that brings you together. And so there is this pillar, and in the middle that you can, sit on and be comfortable and not doubt that it will go away. But then from that, then you engage in conversation with different type of people, and maybe you don't fully agree, but you just learn, and it's a place where you can be yourself, be open to learning, be open to hearing other perspectives. And that's, that's super important, because I grew up, I didn't have, of course, in the Caribbean, the sense of community is very high. That's how life is, right? That's how these islands operate. But my parents, they moved from these islands to the mainland when in their early 20s. And so they left their community. They found other communities in Paris, but smaller ones and so forth. And I think with age, they, at least when I came, when I was born, I didn't feel like we were really part of a, strong community. So I didn't grow up with that aspect. And it's only when I started working with Ovett that I really came to understand the meaning of community and how important it is. And especially more so for people, for biculturals. So for people that don't, not only I'm, an Afropean in the Netherlands, but I'm also an expat or immigrant, whatever. So you need to find your new marks and, anchor your identity somewhere in this new place, and having a community helps with that. So I would advise anyone to, even if you maybe have some doubts about what community is, or you don't really believe it, just be curious, just try. And I think there is at least one or two positive takeaway that you will get. And that's, in these times, any positive takeaway, just take it.
But also what I get from what you are sharing with the work that I'm doing, right? If we want progress, if we want innovation, if we want creativity, if we want to grow, you cannot do it on your own. I mean, you can, but
very true.
You are doing it on a very slow pace. Whereas when you're tapping into community, you are able to delegate, you are able to connect, you are able to support each other and help each other grow. And that's what I've seen ever since being in a community or being part of different communities, that I'm leveraging the value of being in a community. But also when I hear somebody's looking for, let's say, for an event, or somebody's looking for TV production or podcast production or whatever, I try to pitch in whatever way, whether it's my advice, whether it's sponsoring of a small donation. People don't reach out to me because I'm not Oprah, but sometimes I am playing secret Sandra or a secret donator, because I believe in just a little amount that I can support the community or buy tickets for other people, right? It's the little things that I can do to make events accessible, to see how I can diversify, to use my privilege for the better. So thank you for addressing this, Sandra, for amplifying community. And unfortunately, we have reached the last question.
Wow.
What's the message? Yeah, I know. What's the message that you want to share for the future, especially when it comes to those who want to challenge and mitigate the challenges that they are facing right now? And when I talk about challenges, I'm talking about exclusion. I'm talking about discrimination. I'm talking about racism. What's the message that you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I think probably I will just repeat a bit what I said before, but well, we have recently had elections in the Netherlands that showed us, yes, it's what it showed us is that, yeah, we still need to, so when I say we, it's like minorities in Europe, still need to fight a little bit to,
it's not upon us alone, though. I do believe that we need allies from the majority that want to change better, because it's not only our challenge that we need to fight. It's also upon those who really believe in diversity to make an effort to involve us as well. I just wanted to share that. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. But clearly, there is quite a large group of people that don't really care about making sure that we feel comfortable in Europe, right? And or opening doors to us. So sure, we need allies, we need ally, but most and foremost, we need to rely on ourselves first. So being part of a community which goal is to uplift each other, to push each other, to just continue, carving our path. That's I think the main message that I want for the future is like, don't focus on the people that are there for you, and don't focus on trying to convince the people, certain type of people, that you're legitimate to live in Europe, or that your existence is legitimate. Like, probably these people will never be convinced anyway, and it's their problem. I mean, it's 2023, like, karma will take care of them, and other people will take care of them.
It's also a waste of our energy, right? A waste of our energy and time to convince people to trust us, to believe in us, to invest in us. And I am going to quote Ava DuVernay, which I've quoted quite a while now, where Ava DuVernay was talking about creating her own movies, right? So Ava DuVernay, she's the director who created the movie 13th, and also other valuable movies that are talking about our narrative, are talking about a narrative from a Black perspective. And Ava's quote is, "I'm not going to continue knocking on that old door that doesn't open for me. I am going to create my own door and walk through that door, because she's amazing. She's amazing."
Yeah,
exactly. We need to invest in ourselves instead of, holding our hands up or waiting upon somebody else to see our value. Make yourself known.
Yeah.
Be visible. Be on LinkedIn. If you don't have LinkedIn, don't talk to me. You have to have LinkedIn. If you want to leverage your professional development, be visible on LinkedIn, and definitely look at Sandra's page and also look at my page. You'll notice that we are active on LinkedIn. We have a profile, because you have to leverage LinkedIn for a professional. I mean, other platforms are valuable, like Instagram or TikTok. I'm not part of the TikTok crew, but I can understand that definitely there are different platforms for different people. Leverage the platform that you feel comfortable with, but definitely have a LinkedIn profile. That's it, period. Don't talk to me if you don't have a LinkedIn profile.
Whew, I have one. Yeah.
Luckily. Thank you, Sandra, so much for this conversation. I really appreciate it too, for you to share your experience and also the biculturalness of what you had. I really love it that you said that I represent both France and also the Grenade and Martinique as well. And I have a part of me from Dominique, so Dominican, which I didn't know. And I think a lot of people didn't know, right? So that's very valuable. In the show notes, I will share the recipes or at least images or videos of the dishes that you shared. And it was an honor to interview you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was really a pleasure to discuss with you. And I'm really flattered that you invited me on your podcast.
Of course.
Just a quick rectification that it's Guadalupe, not Grenade.
Sorry.
No worries.
You weren't listening. Oh my God. Okay, people, this is how you apologize, right? Guadalupe, Martinique. And I apologize for mentioning the wrong country.
It's fine. It's that's why I always say like the Caribbean, because that's
yes.
It's just people jumping from one island to another. Same people.
Thank you. Thank you for this correction.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cooking Back to Our Roots. I hope you enjoyed my mom's conversation with the guest speakers. If you love what you heard today, don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family. Until next time, bye!